My name is Lisa Dean, and on behalf of my sector support and development colleagues who are partners in this project, I'd like to welcome you all here online today. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, wherever you may be joining us from today. I'm sitting on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be joining us today. So today's launch is really an opportunity for you to learn more about the communication toolkit, what's in it, and how it can support your approach to communicating changes in aged care reform to your boards, to your workforce, and with your clients. So we hope that at the end of this short session, you'll take away some useful tips and hints and understanding about how you can use the toolkit to tailor information for your specific audiences. Before we get into what's actually in the toolkit and how to use it, we really wanted to take a moment to reflect on why communication matters. Given the nature of our work, clear, consistent communication really underpins everything that we do. So whether we're talking to staff, to our clients, their families of choice, our boards or others, the way that we actually communicate shapes trust, clarity, and culture. So if you think about your own experience of communication, when it's effective, we feel really included, we feel informed, and we feel confident. And alternatively, when it's poor, it can lead to misunderstandings, frustrations, and disengagement. So this toolkit is really designed to help you communicate with purpose and consistency, which we know are especially important during this time of change and reform in the aged care space. So the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And I think this is a really great quote because it reminds us that just sending a message doesn't mean that it's actually been received, understood, or accepted. If you haven't already done so, we really encourage you to put a good communication strategy in place and to really be sure to include communication with your frontline staff in particular. They ultimately have a relationship with your client, and in turn, they have the capacity to turn clarity of information into strong relationships and better outcomes for your clients. We're really pleased and excited to make this toolkit available, and we encourage you to use this as a resource as part of your overall communication strategy that speaks to your particular audience. So I'm now going to hand over to Tash Edwards from Enkindle Consulting, who have led the development of this toolkit, and Tash is going to take us through the contents. So thanks, Tash.
This toolkit, which really was born from feedback from you, from providers, through some of the workshops we were running with our sector and support development teams. You said, look, why can't we sort of come together and pull together a resource that we can all use? Because really, I guess, one of the things that we talk about in our workshops is how communication is one of the foundations of really good change management, and acknowledging this is a really big change, not just for us as a provider, but also for our boards, for our staff members, for our clients, and even for our subcontractors as well. And so we're very thankful to the SSD team that have allowed us to work on this for you and bring you a really, I guess, what I would call a really robust toolkit that really focuses on the Act in its primary and the changes around the Act, and then it moves into support at home. And I'm going to talk about those as we work through what's actually in the toolkit. And really, I guess what we wanted this toolkit to do was not to duplicate effort. We wanted it to actually reduce effort being duplicated across the sector. And so what we wanted it to do was bridge the gap between, general fact sheets and guidance materials that our department or the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission might issue for us, and then provide a number of communication tools that really address the needs of our key stakeholders. And really the main stakeholders that we identified that would benefit from this kit would be your board and your executive teams, your workforce, so your staff, and your clients. And we've even included some contractor resources in one of our recent releases as well. So within the actual toolkit itself, there's a whole lot of different types of communication tools. because I guess, just to reiterate what Lisa was saying, sometimes we can't always be sure that one message we send to our stakeholder is actually going to reach our stakeholder in a way that we intend for the message to be understood. And so what you'll see throughout the toolkit is that we have board briefings, we have staff newsletters, we have client newsletters, we have staff scripts and fact sheets, we have letter templates, and we also have fact sheets for our staff as well. So let's have a look at what is actually in the toolkit. The first part of the toolkit is there's 2 documents. And in the first document, it's all about the Aged Care Act. And there are 41 communication tools within the Aged Care Act Communications Toolkit. And really what this slide does is it shows you all the different topics, all the different change elements that we have covered as part of the communication tools in the toolkit. And you'll see that not all of them have a board briefing, not all of them have a letter to a client, because it's not necessary, or we felt it wasn't necessary to communicate to those stakeholders in that particular way. And of course, this is a basis toolkit, so you can build on it, you can develop more tools if you wanted to. And really what we hope this to do was to save you time by giving you a baseline of information written in a way for each stakeholder that you could then adjust and build in a way that is unique to your organisation and your policies and your procedures. As you can see, there are 41 communication tools just on the Act, but what we also acknowledge is there's a lot of CHSP organisations that also deliver home care packages. Now, we have 32 communication tools available for our support at home or providers that are transitioning to support at home. And again, you can see we've used the same sort of mix of resources, focusing on the board, focusing on our staff and the changes that are going to impact them, and also on the clients and their representatives as well. So let's take a bit of a closer look on the different types of tools that we've got in the toolkit. So when we were developing the toolkit, we really wanted to include a lot of board briefings. This was because we heard from providers that reaching our board can be challenging and getting key messaging to them at times can be a little bit of a struggle. Most of them work full-time, they're volunteers, and so how do we do that in a succinct and effective way? And so I think pretty much all of the topics, I think it's only about 5 topics that don't have board briefings. And what we've tried to do here is give the board an understanding of why they're receiving this briefing. So what's the purpose and what's the actual change, and is there a legislative impact? Is that why we're telling them about this particular topic? Then we're giving them information about where this has come from, so what's the background. So we're trying to help them understand whether this already applies to them or potentially, if you're a CHSP provider, whether this is a brand new requirement for you. And so that's brought into very much in the executive summary, the background and the key changes section. And then we go about summarising the legislation and the rules. Now, one of the things about the toolkit is that we still don't have the final set of rules. And so, or when we wrote it, we didn't. So therefore, we've had to write it based on what we understood at the time. And so there is a need for all providers to take due diligence when they're using the tools to make sure that there's not been any further guidance distributed by the department or by the commission, and that the rules haven't changed in any way when they get finalised. So there are a few things there that you just want to keep an eye on as you're using the tools as well. Really, these tools can be used not just for your board, but also for your executive teams, because it really does describe the key changes in a very provider sense, and also helps, we give some guidance, I guess, in the document as well around how it might impact the organisation and then what you can do about it. So we've listed some considerations that boards and organisations may want to consider as they're implementing and transitioning to the changes. The other main type of tool that we have in here is staff newsletters, and really this is just a high-level information about each of the changes that impact the staff. So you won't find it on every single change, but you will find it on the changes that we felt would have the biggest impact on your workforce. And really the idea here is it's a one-pager in a newsletter, or that you could put in a newsletter that you could communicate to your staff. But we also wanted to acknowledge that not all organisations have a regular staff newsletter, and that this could be something that could be adapted to put onto your staff portal if you've got a broadcast or a news section on your staff portal, on your staff app, or on your internal intranet as well. Or potentially if you're a user of Teams, you could use a Teams channel to start to broadcast out some of these staff newsletter articles. But really, they're very high level. They're just to raise awareness and also help the staff member understand what the change means to them and what they need to do about it. So, for example, if they needed to attend some training, then they could go and do that. We would be instructing them on what to do there. So when it comes to, I guess, that part of the newsletter, when we're talking about what's next, that's really an opportunity for you to customise, to tell the staff member potentially when the training might happen or how the training might happen, if that's something that your organisation is planning on doing, or if your organisation is planning on doing more articles or more news articles about this particular topic, even alerting them to those news articles, or where they can go to the department resources for more information as well. We've also got client newsletters, so very much similar to the staff, acknowledging that some organisations have a client newsletter that they send out regularly. And so really that high-level impact on, some of the changes that impact them and really breaking it down. And a lot of these are written in a Q&A type fashion where they might be, we're anticipating the client are going to have these questions and so we're responding to them. And so the idea here is that if you don't have a client newsletter, you could publish this on your client portal potentially, or you could even, broadcast it through your client portal if you have a client portal, or even adjust it for inclusion with statements if you're a home care package provider. But if you don't have a newsletter, it's not mandatory for you to have one. So it's really just an optional thing for providers to use if they do have these mechanisms for regular communication with your clients. Another option is that if you don't have that type of regular communication with your clients, how might you bundle up a few of these sort of newsletter articles and do one sort of mail out to your client would be another suggestion there as well. Now, the next example that we've got is the staff script and FAQs. And really, this one here gives, an introduction to the topic, so some high-level information about the particular topic that we've written the staff FAQ on. But then it goes into questions and it's written in the third person as if the client was asking the question. So when the staff is using the script to respond, they're using an empathetic tone and responding in that first person directly back to the client. Again, this is very much written in a way that is that generic view of high-level information taken from the Act and taken from the rules. But if you wanted to customise this with some of your procedures, some of your contact details, or even some of your organisational policies, you've got the ability to do that with this particular toolkit. This really is just giving you the foundation to really adapt these and make them your own. We've also got letter templates, and this particular example here that we've got on the screen is one for client family members, so representatives of clients, but you'll see different types of letters throughout the toolkit. There's even letters for clients that you can adjust, particularly around support at home, which were part of the first release when we first released the toolkit. And really, these are just designed to give you that foundation of information that you can write to your clients and start consulting with them about the changes that are happening. And really, regarding the Act and the requirements and obligations of us as providers, we do have an obligation to consult with our clients, not just on support at home matters, but also on elements of the Act, such as the Statement of Rights, such as the Code of Conduct. And also, I did have another one, just slipped my mind, but also, I guess, whistleblower protections as well would be another one there that we would need to talk to clients about. So certainly these letters are a way, again, to help you with tools to communicate the key messaging across to your client base. We've also got fact sheets, and these really are a mix of who these are for. So just important when you're looking at the fact sheet just to see whether it says a client fact sheet or a staff fact sheet at the top, because that will let you know who the audience is intended, and then that will obviously make sense as you start to read the actual fact sheet itself. But really, it's just got a consistent structure that really is written in a way of an FAQ that helps either your staff or your clients, depending on who it's for, understand the change even better and in more detail, calling out some of the commonly asked questions that we would expect people might have about the particular changes. Now, what's probably your opportunity here as a provider, and what would make this different from a fact sheet that the department would put out, is if you actually started to customise it in a way that included the things such as key contact people, who to speak to, phone numbers, etc., or particular forms or processes that you wanted the clients or the staff to follow if they were dealing with a matter that is related to that particular topic in response to one of the questions in that particular fact sheet. So certainly is intended to be very helpful and more informative than a newsletter article, I guess, for your staff or for your clients. So you'll see that they're a lot longer in terms of their length. When it comes to customising the toolkit, we've tried to point out some areas that we think are ideal for you to customise. You might find other areas in the toolkit that are suitable or make sense for you to edit and amend to suit your organisation. But where you see this bright yellow text, the idea here is that you would delete that and you would replace that with text that made sense for you. And there's a couple of examples here. So you can see here with the board briefing, we've got a placeholder for a provider to put text about the risk considerations. So we've dot pointed, I guess, some risks that we see in this particular topic area. But as a provider, if you're sending this to the board, you may want to put some information about the context of those risks for your board before you actually send it to them. And then the implementation status, again, that's an opportunity for you to update the board on where you're at and how you're going with mitigating some of those risks and taking action. So again, just some suggestions. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But we just wanted to make some suggestions there. Another common area that you'll see yellow highlighted is your provider name. So that's just an idea, or your service name or your client name. That's for you to update accordingly. I think that's pretty straightforward. But you'll also see other yellow highlights where we're saying optional. And that is where we've maybe made a suggestion about the way you might manage something in your organisation, and you may decide that's not how you're going to manage it in your organisation. An example of that is whistleblowers, for example. We might have made a suggestion that you have a whistleblower officer, and so there might be a section in your board briefing that talks to that. You'll see that's all highlighted in yellow so that you can take that out if that's not something that you intend to do, because, again, this is not something that you're required to do. It's something that we're suggesting might be a good idea, and some rationale as to why that is would be written in that text. So you can see we've just made that nice and easy for you to see where you might need to delete or edit according to your organisational needs. We've also got the ability for you to customise the toolkit, which I've talked about a little anyway. We've kind of tried to use a really plain English approach to this, so reduce jargon as much as we can, use as much plain English as we can to really make sure that when it reaches a broad audience, it reaches them in a way that, is accessible to them. But of course, you may need to adjust it more because you know your staff and you know your clients better than us. And some of you may even go to the effort of getting some of this material translated, for example. So this is really totally customizable to you, and you are able to, I guess, edit it as you like. We've also, as you see, we didn't spend any time making it look pretty. That's because the intention here is for you to own the content. So once you reviewed it, once you're happy and you're satisfied that it is, contemporary and accurate, and it is in line with what your organisation policy and procedures are or will be, then the idea is that you will put it on your letterhead or on your with your logo, not with ours. You'll see we've got links to resources. And so, again, if you're going to mail this out to your clients, what's probably important here is that you don't mail out something with a hyperlink in it, because that will mean nothing to the clients. You're going to need to replace that with the information on where they can find that fact sheet or attach the fact sheet to the information. That won't always be possible with the types of links we've included, but just want you to give some consideration to when we've hyperlinked something that will work if you're emailing it, but it won't necessarily work if you're going to post something out. The other thing that we've just wanted to mention was just a reminder, and I did mention this, that while we've taken all care to make sure this is the most accurate and up-to-date information, not all guidance material is out yet, and not all rules are finalised. And so that does make it a little bit difficult in the sense that we have given you the current version as of the date that we finished writing each of the releases. But we are putting the onus, I guess, back on providers just to say it's important that you double check and make sure that before you send any of this communication out that you're happy that it is correct and that you've gone back and checked it against either the Act or the rules or the guidance material put out by the Commission or the department. I know we've had some early feedback from providers that this has been really valuable, and we've certainly received that feedback ourselves, but also seen it on LinkedIn. So thank you to everybody that's been engaging with the toolkit. If you haven't yet, please go on and download it. I think you'll find it really valuable. As I said, it's really a great baseline for you and going to stop a lot of duplication of effort as you think about how do I go and help with this change management aspect of implementing these changes with these key stakeholders across our organisation. So I really hope you get the most out of it. I'm just going to hand back to Mel.
Thanks, Tash. There's a question in here around, is there a service agreement template for now? Given we don't have the final rules around the Aged Care Act at this point in time, there is no service agreement template. However, we are aware that the department are working on something that will come out shortly, so wait for that. But obviously, yes, statement of principles and things are covered under the Code of Conduct. We've got the statement of rights there as well.
Nat, there's a question there. Is version 2 released the 8th of July, the most recent version? So might just want to explain about the version controls.
Yep, so there were 3 releases. So there was the first release, the second release was on the 8th of July, and we will, Tash, if you could just go over to the next slide. We do have release 3, which is the final release. So this will be released today for everybody to access. You can see on your screens that there is 2 bit.ly links and some QR codes that you can access the resource there. But also all of the Victorian partners that have been involved in the project do have this resource accessible on their website. So we would encourage you to go and have a look at those as well as access it through those bit.ly links on your screen. We would just like to, on behalf of Sector Support and Development, if you're interested in accessing further support and progress for your organisation in really understanding all things around aged care reform, sector readiness and service delivery, or have further questions or comments about this particular toolkit, we would advise you to feel free to reach out to us. On the next slide, we do have our contact details of all the partners that were involved. So Meg and Sandra from that North Metro, West Metro and Lord Mallee and Victoria region, Lisa and Anna from our Eastern Metro, Alison from Bayside. We've also got Paul there from Hume, myself and Mel from the Grampian sector region, and Sal from Barwon, West and Gippsland. Alternatively, we do encourage you also to reach out to your local sector support and development team if you feel that would be more comfortable or you'd like to have a chat to them further about what's currently happening.